Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out the radio version of the show every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on WDJY 99.1 in Atlanta. We also air on a podcasting network in Los Angeles called the 405 Media. There's a TV version of the show that airs on KMVT 15 in Silicon Valley at 8 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday nights. Both versions of the show air in other states. For these show times, plus past episodes, please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com. Join me at the 10th Annual Media Excellence Awards on January 18th in Beverly Hills, California. The attendees and I will be celebrating innovation and leadership in technology and entertainment. There are 20 award categories with 1,000 nominees. These awards honor those who are creating groundbreaking technology to better our lives and celebrate the hard work, determination, and brilliance in the leadership within the companies which create the new world we live in today. I will be recording nominees and winners at the awards. For tickets and more information, go to MediaXAwards.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Tyler Slocum. He's the Vice President of Operations, Platforms, Technology at FX Networks. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, doing great. Spending some time at CES. It's always interesting to get to walk around and take it all in. So it's been a busy week for me.
Sure. No, that's great, man. So I really want to kind of cover your background and kind of what you're doing kind of now. But maybe before we kind of get into all that fun stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with kind of where you grew up.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in Los Angeles, lived in Westchester by LAX.
Okay.
And and then stayed in, I'm an LA native, so I stayed in LA my whole life. So a lot of people question me. I'm like, hey, you stayed in LA all your life. But yeah, I've been out here, raised and born.
No, that's great, man. So you went to university. What did you take in university and why did you decide to take it?
Yeah, well, I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And there was probably a little bit of my dad's influence there. My dad was an airline mechanic for 27 years. And so I did a lot of hands-on things with him. So he built a couple boats in the garage. And so I grew up around kind of building things and also, kind of the airlines and engines and things like that. So I think that's what, originally interested me. I was decent in math and, just had an interest in that. So that's kind of went down that path.
No, that's great, man. So you get out of university, walk me through a little bit of your career up until kind of FX, because you've done a ton of really cool stuff. So maybe kind of give us a little bit of an overview and some of the career highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that I think kind of positioned me, at least early in my career, was I had an internship at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft.
Sure.
In Long Beach. And so that was, while I was still in college. So, I think anything you can do to build your resume and get some work experience when you're still in college is pretty important. And so when it came time to graduate, I was looking around trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There was some interesting things in petroleum, and since I was a mechanical engineer, there was, all the devices and everything else. And an interesting position came along for Northrop Grumman. So it was actually on the B-2 stealth bomber.
That's cool.
So, so here I'm a college grad, and they're telling me, well, you're going to need a security clearance with the Air Force and, all this kind of cool stuff. So I think my background at McDonnell Douglas helped me land that position. And so, I got a job. My first job was out of college. I worked there for a couple of years on the B-2 stealth bomber. So
that's wild.
Actually,
that's awesome.
There was a group of us. There was about 10 of us. They were all kind of hired in at the same time. And we actually went up to Palmdale, Lancaster on the Air Force Base. And we all had kind of apartments up there. And it was really hands-on because a lot of the design had been done. And now they were in manufacturing. So we actually got to walk around the floor, crawl up in the crew entry areas of the B-2. I got to go in when it was fully fueled. I didn't get to fly in it, but I got to go up when it was fully fueled and turned on. So a lot of what we were doing was making sure that everything was coming together. All the parts were fitting together. If we had to make changes, we would do that. So that's really was my start, was really hardcore kind of engineering in aircraft and defense.
Okay.
So that's how I got my start. And then from there I moved into space technology. So went to what was Hughes Space and Communications at the time. And I went into the solar array group, so I was designing solar arrays for spacecraft.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it was like the spinning. They had a spinning, what they called spinners, were the kind of the first satellites, and then they had 3-axis, the square ones, which you see with the wings that would deploy. So people are more familiar with that. So I was there, spent about 6 years, and that was still in LA. That was in El Segundo area where they're located there. So, and started, actually, this is when I took a little bit of change in my career path. I mean, for engineers, you go deep into engineering, and sometimes you get your master's and really focus on, the kind of the deep learning of it. Or you go the product route, so you take a little bit different slant and you start to look at project management and, that overall.
Right.
And so this is where my career transformed a little bit, and I went down the project side of it. So I started becoming more of a project manager there, got that skill, kind of, trained that over time. And then the next move that I made was really, I think, completely, this was like a pivot for me. So I went to DirecTV at this. And I don't know, a lot of people don't know that DirecTV was actually born out of Hughes Space and Communications. Eddie at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, Eddie Hartenstein had introduced a project there at Hughes that was going to be this direct-to-home satellite entertainment system. And so that's where it started. It was actually, he showed us some of those real old overhead projector slides with financial projections and everything else for it. So I went into DirecTV as a project manager, and I was actually in a project management group. And I remember when I first came in, they said, yeah, you're going to be doing some technology projects, but you're also going to be running the fourth quarter marketing offer. And I had no idea what a fourth quarter marketing offer, what that meant. I knew it was you're trying to sell something and you're packaging something up. But so I think that really, kind of changed things for me a little bit. I started to, now I was officially in entertainment, and I also had kind of this general look at kind of marketing and then also technology. And so that was really kind of a first pivot for me. And then I spent almost 12 years at DirecTV and just covered just about everything. When I first came in, I was 3 months in and I was put in charge of CES.
Oh, very cool.
We were, this was prior to the TiVo launch. Okay. So TiVo had an independent box out there, DVR, that had only been out for a little while. And we were working with TiVo to integrate into our set-top boxes. Okay. And we went to, and at CES, we were showing for the first time, we were showing the TiVo box. We also were integrating with Microsoft on what was called the Ultimate TV box at the time. Okay. And this is another thing that a lot of people don't know, is we had a big deal with AOL at the time. So we were going to have a third DVR, which was an AOL DirecTV DVR, where you could actually, at the time, instant message to people through your DVR.
That's cool.
So that was my first CES experience. We showed 3 DVRs from 3 different major companies on the floor at the same time, and so that was my kind of introduction to consumer electronics technology, entertainment technology, and then from there it was just everything. I mean, mobile. We showed the first. We had DirecTV Sunday Ticket on DirecTV, so I think it was 2005. I think we showed the first highlight clip from an NFL on a flip phone. Oh wow! On a Verizon flip phone. At CES. So this was kind of the start of
really early on.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
I know this is kind of dating me, but
no, it's good. It's cool because through kind of Sarah, I've had a bunch of people like yourself on the show that were kind of the first to do some of this stuff. But the thing that's funny and really cool for me is I remember some of this stuff, or like reading about it, or like watching it, right? And so just finally getting to meet the people that actually made it happen is like really cool for me. But sorry to interrupt. That was a tangent, but keep going.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it feels, it's like it felt like the beginning, of kind of the revolution that you see today, right?
Sure.
And so, I mean, video is just ubiquitous across devices now. I mean, highlight clips. If I told everybody that I was going to, send a highlight clip to a phone, today it's like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah.
But back in 2005, showing it on the screen, I mean, with the bandwidth availability and everything else that was happening back in the day, it's like, it was pretty revolutionary for the time. So, but yeah. So, and then I got into, we got into a lot of interactive TV at the time, and then there was, I think, when Fox took an equity stake in DirecTV and they came in, we really beefed up all the interactive sports.
Okay.
So Eric Shanks and that whole team, they were doing a lot with B-Sky B, and so they brought a lot of that to DirecTV, and we started doing those mixed channels, where you can watch like up to 8 individual video cells, so you could see. And with Sunday Ticket, you have all the out-of-market games, so you could have all those games going on at the same time. This is way to bounce around. So we started doing a bunch of that interactivity, and then moved into. And I was in a group, Advanced Services and Content, it was called, one of its names. And we sat between engineering and marketing. So we were kind of the incubators in the middle. We had business development people, we had user interface folks, project managers, and all of us. So it was a pretty cool place to be. I mean, you got to kind of incubate this stuff, work with engineering to kind of build it out. And then, when TV Everywhere became really big. So then we were kind of on the cutting edge of that. There was a lot of rights things to work out.
Sure, I
remember going back and forth, with HBO and Showtime and everybody, because, they hadn't contemplated the rights at that time, like, the streaming rights. They weren't even in the deals, because a lot of these deals are, they'd be 5, 7, even 10-year deals. And a lot of that language just wasn't in the contracts it was all just basically in-home usage. So, we got to work on a product. It's kind of, it's morphed into what DirecTV has today with its mobile app. But, we had a number of channels that were available. You could stream kind of in your house, was the first step, because we could get the rights within the house. And then later started getting rights to stream outside of the house. And this was the whole TV Everywhere, anytime, everywhere, all the work associated with that kind of product. So that was, and then I spent a long time really incubating and starting interactive ads at DirecTV. So they had just done traditional clustering of ads, and because with DirecTV you wouldn't buy across individual shows, you would buy like a genre, or it would be family, and you'd buy across multiple different channels, and you would get that it's that 2 minutes per hour that DirecTV would get. And so, once again, from B-Sky, they were doing a lot of things with interactive advertising. This was when everyone was trying to figure out how you do overlays, on TV, and how you could get people to kind of click right from the TV into something interactive.
Sure.
I mean, cable had the advantage at that point because they did have a back channel out of their set-top boxes. We were still trying to figure out what we could use, what little kind of satellite bandwidth we could devote to this kind of thing. But we introduced a couple interactive channels, and the concept was that you could an advertiser could buy a channel for a week, and it's your channel. It's in the guide, and we'll build an interactive application to go over the top of it. So spent a lot of time with the ad sales team, and I would be doing ride-alongs, as the tech guy in the room, to try to explain the technology to advertisers, and
that's awesome.
what it was capable of. Yeah, and one of the memorable ones that we did was Burger King. I don't know if you ever heard about this, but they literally had a sizzling Whopper for 3 minutes, and if you sat there and watched the Whopper sizzle for 3 minutes, and you get a coupon code at the end.
Oh, really?
So that
I don't
was their
remember that,
execution.
but sure, that's cool.
That was their execution. So, so I spent a bunch of time interactive ads, and then the TV Everywhere, and then I think towards the kind of the end of my stay there, there was more broadband connectivity into the HD DVRs. So, they were becoming connected within the home, and you had like kind of a home DVR. And so by introducing products, all new opportunities. So I worked on this thing called TV apps, which were trying to be akin to, kind of the App Store and apps on Apple. And we made a dock for them, and you could add apps to your dock and all this kind of good stuff. So really just, the gamut of things at DirecTV. So
sure. No, that's great. And then you moved on to the NFL, correct?
Yeah, well, I had spent, a number of, quite a bit of time on the Sunday Ticket product.
Right.
And so I was familiar with that. I'd worked on, Sunday Ticket, the mobile application we had and everything else. And so I had, I was talking to somebody, and they let me know that they were building up a mobile team over there. And this was, the league is divided up into really, half of it is in New York, and then half of it's in Culver City.
Okay.
With the digital media team all being in Culver City. And so, I guess, they had a few guys working on mobile, but didn't really have a proper team, at the time. So I got to talking to Manish Jha. He was senior vice president over at ESPN, and he was coming in to kind of lead this mobile team. And so it sounded pretty exciting. And it was, the thing about the NFL, right, is you have this, you have this huge audience, right? It's just, they're eating. So that's was kind of exciting. This audience, I knew football, and so I went to the NFL, and that was, that was a pretty crazy experience. And it was so because Verizon had, at the time, it was $1 billion investment in the league, and it was for, I think it was a 4-year deal to actually get the games, stream a certain number of games. So wow. Monday night, Sunday night games, Thursday night games, and they would be exclusive to Verizon customers on mobile devices. And so when I first came in, the only issue was that Verizon had an application, and it was kind of a brick unless you had a username and password to kind of get through the entry screen. And then the league had a mobile app, but it didn't have any of the streaming video or anything else. And so you were kind of, the audience was really kind of bifurcated across these two apps. And Verizon, so we worked with Verizon for about 3 months, I guess, until we got to about December, January. And then everyone decided that, hey, it's a good idea. Why don't we combine these applications? You'd have a bigger funnel. Verizon customers could access the video through, like kind of back-end channels by logging into the video portion of it. But everyone would have access to the same app. There's upsell potential and everything else there.
Sure.
But the issue was that this decision was being made in like January, and here we are facing down. You've got to have everything ready pretty much by June, to get the app out there. And so we went for it. We basically rebuilt the mobile experience for the NFL in about 6 months.
Wow.
And at the time it had to be across all of Verizon's phones that they offered. So this was BlackBerry, there's even a tablet across Android, iPhone, everybody else. And so I think we brought in 2 companies with probably a couple hundred developers, and you had to connect into Verizon backend systems. And of course, if you miss a Verizon IT update, those things happen in cycles, and they don't happen all the times every month. So if you missed an update, you'd be waiting, multiple months out. So we had to kind of fit into their development cycle as well.
Interesting.
So I think, and it was crazy. We
sure,
called,
I can imagine. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, we launched, we got it out. Everybody was kind of pins and needles and stuff, but and they don't hold the kickoff for you, so
yeah, fair enough, right? Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, that was a great experience. Just crazy experience. Like I said, you have the fan base, you are the league, so there's kind of a responsibility that you got to have all the information in the app. It's got to be right. The video's got to work. And of course you're going to run into things, when somebody's going to be watching a video for a couple hours, and you never know, what their location is, what the issue might be, a bandwidth, is it the app, what's login, what could be the potential issue. So, but yeah, that was a great experience. And I moved on to, connected TV devices and apps for the league as well. I started working with Microsoft Xbox. So it was the first year they had put pads and put sensors in the pads, shoulder pads. And so now we had new data coming in. I mean, tons of new data, and Xbox in their app. We worked with them, and now they were able to. You could visualize on the screen the path, the speed, distance, everything else of players in key plays.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, so you could see the highlight, the actual video highlight, and then on the screen graphically, you would have kind of three-dimensional graphic that could show you these key players, and then you could pick different players that you wanted to see and see all that information. So I think there was even like a sweepstakes built around like who would be the fastest that week. So that was some pretty interesting stuff there. So that was a great experience. We did a lot of stuff with beacons.
Okay.
So we'd go out to about a week and a half before the Super Bowl. One year we put beacons all over New York City, all up and down the NFL experience. We put them in the convention center. I mean, we had guys on ladders like sticking beacons everywhere.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so we working with Qualcomm at the time, so just freezing our butts out there,
Sure.
Setting up beacons and stuff. But so that I think we were one of the first ones, and there's some articles about it, but one of the first ones to actually kind of use beacons in that sense in the locations. I think static storefronts had used them, and Apple was just kind of introducing their iBeacon, but that was kind of a fun thing we got to do as well.
No, I think that's awesome, man. That's great. Like you were very early on in a lot of this stuff, right? Like that's what's really cool and kind of fascinating, right? Like somebody had to do it first, and you did a lot of it first.
Yeah. I think I think it's really about finding like technologies and then really thinking through how you can apply them, right?
Sure.
And I think, that's what we kind of do every day, right? That's what CES is. You walk around CES and you look at stuff and see what's maturing, what's coming out, and think about, how can I leverage that? What impact is it going to make on decisions I'm making, applications we're developing, how does that apply to you, So, so I think it's, that's kind of cool. And every step of the way, it was something new that was coming up on the horizon. And it was just like, how do we get there? How do we get there? How do we leverage this? How does it make a great fan experience? How does it reinforce the story or help tell the story? But yeah, that's what it's all about.
No, that's great, man. So you're at FX now. What do you do there?
Yeah, so I'm actually, talk about further transitioning your career. So I'm at FX. I'm in the digital, like the marketing group. So I'm in the proper kind of marketing group that includes all the creatives, all the different aspects of marketing a show and producing a show. So from creating the video commercial spots to coming up with the key art, all of that. I'm actually in a digital group, so I'm half of a digital group at FX, and so operations is all the video operations. So we have the FX Now application, and then fxnetworks.com, and then also Simpsons World. Okay. So all of those are in my purview. And operations is every piece of video content and art that you see on the website and video that you watch comes through our operations team.
That's very cool.
So we have to make sure all that's staged. We have to make sure that overnight we get the video from the show so we can put it online on digital so it's available. All the clips come through. The operations teams also delivers a video to social channels as well. So operations is really, working through various CMS systems to make sure that we have all the video matched up with the metadata, matched up with the key art and the images, and all of that makes it to all our platforms across mobile and in-home and everything else. So that's the operations piece of it. Platforms have a platforms team. And, this is really all about, continue to develop the platforms, making sure that, we understand the roadmap, what we have coming down the pipe. We have, also we do some things based on what a show is all about. Some shows will lend themselves to different interactions and applications. So for Archer, for instance, this last season of Archer, we actually worked with Floyd County and built an AR app. So we built Archer PI AR app, and so you got to basically, there would be clues in the video. So if you watch the show, there would be clues that you'd be looking for, and if you stopped the program at that certain time, then what would happen is you could use the AR camera and you'd actually get the reward for that, right?
That's
and so
cool.
You would have got that achievement. So I think in watching through, you could follow the story along and kind of solve the puzzle, the crime story every week for Archer. So that was pretty cool. So, depending on what the show is, sometimes they'll lend themselves to a completely separate app. American Horror Story, we basically built a microsite for American Horror Story. At Comic-Con, we introduced it because we didn't talk about what the series was going to be about. So this year, and so we didn't. It was it was cult, a simple 4-letter word, but we had to try to keep that secret from the world for several months developing. And then at Comic-Con, the team did a great big water wall. It's a 30-foot water wall where we had a video then that told everybody to go to the website and what website to go to. Then where we unveiled the title and the theme of the show, AHS Cult. And then through a series of updates for 6 weeks, we would introduce new content. And then if you participated in the interactivity, then you got to see the first one to see things like character bios and costumes and a bunch of information about the show and exclusive video and everything else. So that was another kind of fun thing that we did. So the cool thing about being part of the digital team there is just you have all these anchor platforms that people can view your content and see everything you're doing. But then also you get these, one-off experiences that make a lot of sense that are paired with the content itself. So that's pretty cool. And then tech, I have a tech project manager that I work with. We work with on the platforms a digital consumer group within Fox. Okay. And then we also work with other third parties on our website, et cetera. I think it's, once again, a new experience for me. Super exciting. I'm surrounded by just some of the most creative people. And if you ever watch the shows on FX or you see the key art, it's just so impactful. And then, the shows are amazing. Atlanta, and we just announced Mayans. Kind of spin off of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah,
so,
love that. Yeah. I love Sons for sure. For sure. That's great, man.
Yeah.
So you won some Emmys, correct? What were they kind of for?
Yeah. So there was a couple sports Emmys. So 2 were for NFL Sunday Ticket.
Okay.
So one was an engineering Emmy, and the other one was a rather NATIS Academy. ATIS, Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. That's the creative arts Emmys.
Sure.
And so we won for NFL Sunday Ticket. So this is talk about first. We did something. We actually pushed highlights to TiVo as part of this. We did a companion channel for Sunday Ticket. So you would have, and this was once again super early. It sounds pretty simple, but it was cutting edge for the time. We did broadcast a separate channel with kind of an LRAP of all the scores for the other games, sure. And we had an online presence as well. So we combined all of that, and that was the first Emmy for that. And then we won a parallel kind of technology Emmy for that. And then after that, it was for DirecTV Sports.
Very cool, man. No,
so
that's
all
great.
Sports related and all kind of in the interactive realm.
No, that's really cool. And the thing that kind of fascinates me about kind of what you've done and continually do is you're basically bringing these kind of like technology and digital experiences back into kind of the physical world, right? Like the thing you just mentioned that you guys did at Comic-Con, and I'm sure you're doing other stuff in the future, but I think that's really cool. But I'm curious to know, like, there's got to be a lot of time, effort, and planning into doing that kind of stuff, like how do you even kind of start or get like a big company like FX kind of on board to even consider doing some of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the kind of creative spark comes from a lot of places.
Okay.
We're always talking to technology partners.
Okay.
So we're understanding, what's available, what technology's out there. I think, it's kind of a combination of things, kind of knowing what's available, knowing some different things out there. Sometimes things are brought to us. So a production, Floyd County or somebody will bring an idea and say, hey, I got this really cool idea for promoting the show this year. What if we did this, right?
Okay.
And so we're always kind of evaluating those ideas to figure out, does that make sense? Is it going to get us to where we need to be? So I think it comes from different areas within the company and then also external to that on the creative and production side. So I think it's really a collaboration. And when you look at it, it's just like, is this the right fit for this show? And then I think a lot of times it's, it goes back to, the producers and where their mind is with the show. Because, I mean, I think, at the center of this, just like, all of it is the storytelling, is the creative behind the story in the show. And so I think, you really want to understand the producers really well and understand what they're trying to achieve. And if they have a specific direction they're going, sometimes you can get a sense, and it's also, is this show brand new? Is it something that, is this a follow on? Who's the audience?
Sure.
Audiences lend them, and the Archer PI audience is great. It's, it's younger, it's, mobile savvy. It's a different type of audience, and it lends itself well to, mobile AR experience, right?
Right.
Where, something else may not, right? It may be a different show, more of a drama. And it's just not something that you want to kind of wrap that kind of experience around. It's also about what's happening on social as well. I mean, they have vastly different audiences on social that follow them. And you get a sense, how active is the fan base, right? Do they, are they constantly, is this a show that's kind of active all year, even when it's out of the season, and it's available just kind of digitally? Are they still talking about it? Are they talking about the new season? So you kind of have to take all of that, take the producers, the creative that comes inside FX, the audience, and, kind of put it all together, mash it up. And, sometimes something great comes out of that, and it speaks, to digital. And sometimes, and that's where I think digital is always a part of the discussion. I mean, especially these days, it's just like a central piece of that discussion. But it's got to make sense, right? It's got to be something that we all get behind.
Sure, and like it sounds like you guys do quite a bit of research, and that research is related to the audience of that kind of show. But I think, like, just for people listening, I think that could be translated to any industry, whether you're in kind of entertainment or not, right? Like, that kind of stuff is super important, and figuring out kind of who your target market is and doing research on where they play or where they're online, or maybe they're not online, or where they're going to be at a physical location for a big kind of conference or event. Like, I think that's really good to kind of stress again, because I think, well, in my experience, not a lot of big companies and networks kind of do this stuff. I think that's kind of fair to say. And it seems like your career is kind of, the places you've been have kind of allowed you to kind of push the envelope a little bit and actually build these pretty cool kind of either in person or at home or kind of on the phone kind of experiences.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, absolutely. I mean, I think and once again, you have to have the places that I've worked with, we've had the freedom to be able to go out and try things, right? So sometimes you take a very calculated, risk or leap of faith in technology, and you've done your homework and you've done all your research, and you're going after the target market, and they're there and they're going to consume it. Or you've got the data and everything else, and you've got the backing. Sometimes you take a bit of a flyer, right?
Sure.
you don't have all the data set, and it's a new technology, so it may or may not, work exactly like you planned. Sometimes you're surprised in the positive, and sometimes it's, it's a lesson, right? It's a learning lesson. But I think at the heart of it, besides what I said about the creators being willing to explore and come up with new ideas, your team, the management, they have to embrace it.
Sure.
And everybody has to embrace the process and embrace creativity and want to go try these things and do them for it to be successful. So, if everyone's behind it, it's great because you can go out and you can try this stuff and see what works. And, so.
And it's not, some of this stuff isn't cheap to do either, right? So you need the financial backing as well.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It isn't cheap, especially to do it right. Everything comes into play, right? So, just looking at, Archer PI and, different apps are built on, different kind of platforms and with different creative behind them. There's static imagery and everything else, but as soon as you introduce animation and video animation and, character storylines and everything else, and, the price tag goes up. And so, I think this is part of being smart and once again, understanding the marketplace. So I think you have to weigh that in as well. Even alignment of, I think timing is important, right?
Sure.
Critically important as well. Thinking about when you launch something, in relationship to when a show is beginning or, anything, or a football season or whatever else it is. Timing can be super, and sometimes timing can make or break it, right? And you have to understand that, like I said, the audience interaction to get there right before the show actually starts, or is it something that's long lead and I can engage fans and viewers, months ahead of time and kind of build, a swell of movement leading up to the launch of something. But, it all comes at a technology costs money. So creative, people and talented, really creative, talented people, it costs money too, but as it should, right?
Yeah,
everybody
totally
needs to be paid for what they do.
No, I 100% agree. And the reason I kind of mention it is I think sometimes people forget about that side of it, right? Like there's a lot of time and effort and money and kind of buy-in from the higher ups at any company if you want to pull off something pretty cool, right? Or kind of that gets a lot of publicity, because at the end of the day, like if have this crazy loyal fan base, you're going to hear if what you tried to do was successful or not successful, right? Or whether they liked it or not. And so knowing that audience and spending the time and doing that research to make sure that you're as close to 100% sure that it's going to go over well as possible is actually really hard and difficult to do.
Yeah, and then there's no assurance as well, right? So, as there's been a lot of digital products that have come and gone, and
sure.
And I think that the other thing is the pace of everything too, right? And everything, it's almost like everything needs to be new. Some technologies, live, but even the transition to mobile and mostly mobile now. You have to rethink things, right? It went from like kind of desktop, laptop experiences to, wow, it has to be mostly mobile now, which, changes form factor and the way you think about it. So I think things are evolving, and especially in marketing, everybody's, looking for the new experience and looking for the new thing. And, it puts a lot of pressure kind of on the system. There's a lot of companies, luckily there's a lot of companies and a lot of great technology thought going on, the backfill of that and constantly be, offering new solutions, new creative ways to get your content out there. But yeah, it's, this is a way overused word, but it's the ecosystem, right?
Yep,
it
totally.
has to just like life to sustain, it has to have all these pieces. There has to be this technology and really hardcore people developing really cool technology, which, then service can ride on top of to create these really cool experiences. So it's all those pieces have to be there. So, and they kind of determine the direction as well, right? So from hardware manufacturers and what the capabilities they're putting into, and it's interesting. Even like if you look at, you study some of the things that that have worked and that, worked moderately, I guess. Like
Sure.
3D, right?
Yeah.
3D. I mean, you're building something for, where 20% of the audience, at least, I don't know the exact stats, but maybe 20% of the audience will physically might get sick watching something in 3D.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So that's another thing you have to think about is does this have mass appeal? And I think, that's where that 3D versus just getting, higher resolution on TVs. Everybody loves higher resolution.
Sure.
That's great. It works for everybody, right? But 3D only works for a smaller portion of the overall. So I think that's why, you walk around CES and, if you're talking about 3D capabilities in a TV, like nobody's talking about it anymore. It's just thinner and, higher resolution, right? So,
Sure.
So you kind of have to think about that too. Does this apply to everybody? Is everyone to do that? And I think what's crazy today is like VR. I mean, mixed reality, AR, VR is another one. I mean, I think it's got legs because of gaming and just immersing you in an experience. But once again, it's got a headset. For true VR, you can't see outside of that.
Yep.
Right now, at least with most of the headsets, right? It's, because you're immersed in this experience. So does it apply to everyone? Will it have a huge growth? And mixed reality, will it? I think there's almost as much, if not more, opportunity in mixed reality. If you can still kind of see, but be able to leverage information.
I agree.
That could be very powerful.
No, I think that's great, man. But sadly, we're kind of coming to the end of the show, and I really want to talk about kind of your involvement with the Media Excellence Awards this year and kind of in the past. So how did you kind of get involved, and why do you think it's kind of important?
I actually got involved the first year of the award.
10 years.
And I was involved. Yeah, we submitted in 2008 and won for best comeback.
Very cool.
I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to Sarah because I'm not sure that I completely understand what that meant. The connotation of the best comeback. It kind of connotates that we weren't doing so well before, but we came back somehow.
Sure.
But yeah, 2008, that was the first, submitting, accepting award for that. And then 2009, we won for our DVR scheduler we did for iPhone. So that was pretty innovative at the time, right?
Sure.
You could remotely schedule a DVR because it was oh man, I forgot to record this program. So once again, an early day application, but it was pretty cool. So that's how I got involved. And then Sarah and I stayed in touch, and then, several times she asked me to present. So, I was excited to do that. So it's been exciting awards. I think it's great to, especially in the early days, no one was really honoring kind of mobile excellence and what people were doing. So it's been really excited to be involved.
No, that's great, man. And like, you're going to be there next Thursday, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and so we'll get to meet in person, and I'm coming down, and I'm excited to kind of meet. I've had a bunch of you on the show now, and I'm excited to finally meet a bunch of you in person, and I think it's going to be really great on January 18th. Just before we kind of close, is there any links or stuff that people can kind of check out to get more information about kind of what you guys are doing at FX, and anything else you want to mention? We're so actually it's today we just launched the FX skill for Alexa. Very cool.
So yeah, that just literally went out today. So we're pretty excited about that. So always looking for new distribution platforms. I think we're going to be looking at all the voice services and trying to figure out kind of where we go next and where we go next with our skill as well.
Okay.
Probably the best place is just fxnetworks.com because what we do is we put up product pages usually to support all of our new initiatives. We also have a service that launched a little while ago, FX Plus.
Okay.
So it's in coordination with our MVPDs, and it's available for Xfinity customers and Cox as well. And it's really the first opportunity to have access to our most of our back catalog of shows. So Nip Tuck and all of those damages and most of the seasons of our previous shows. If you subscribe to one of those cable platforms, you can upgrade to FX Plus. So we're pretty excited about that. That was a new service that we launch. And so hopefully we'll be working with additional providers and be expanding that service out too. So that was kind of a cool thing that happened later last year.
That's very cool, man. Well, Tyler, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to meeting you in person, and have a good rest of your day.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Okay, bye.
Yep, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. Also check us out on Facebook at Building the Future Show and follow us on Twitter at Building Show. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.